wanting to watch Into the Woods for a while, and it's finally on Disney+. So this past weekend, I sat down for 2 hours and went on the roller coaster that is this movie. Now this movie is the definition of weird and confusing, and I want to talk about 5 of the more confusing messages this movie had to offer. Now, I want to make clear that these are the messages we are talking about, not the scenes. So I'll be talking about what I feel the movie was trying to express to its audience more than what was up with the bringing of a dead cow to life so it could eat clothing items and produce milk that breaks a curse to make one young again. The first one I want to talk about is the Blame Game song. In this scene, everyone is blaming each other for the world becoming the mess it is, while refusing to accept their own responsibility in the problem. The only one who does accept it is the witch, and she does so in one of the most dramatic, spin-around character, sing-on-the-top-of-lung songs I have ever watched. I mean, there was lightning and magic beans being thrown about and everything. And in her song, I feel a really good message was established as she notes it doesn't really matter whose fault it is because the truth is, it's everyone's. We all played a part in the mess and we need to accept it. Even more importantly, we need to move on from it. We cannot change the past, all we can do is try to do good in the present to make the future better. The part that made this message confusing to me was how the witch then dies, I think. I mean, she calls on her mother to take her away from these idiots who were refusing to accept responsibility, and in a way it seems she herself was doing what she was criticizing the others for. She ran away from helping fixing the problem, pushing it onto the other characters. In fact, her entire song was just a tantrum on how unfair it was that she had to take all the blame when no one else would. So while this good message of accepting responsibility for the bad in the world was being sung, the idea of giving up on people who refused to do so was also being shown. The second message had to do with the killing of the giant. I was so confused when they killed the giant because I had thought they were leading up to them not doing it, or at least only doing it after trying to talk to her. The reason I thought this was so was because of the song that was sung while they were laying out the trap that would kill the giant. In this song, Red shares with Cinderella how she believes her grandma and mother would think it wrong what they were doing, that killing is wrong, and that she too also feels that what they are about to do is wrong. Cinderella then shares how Red can't act on others' beliefs, only her own, because in the end her own is the only one that will stick with her. In the same song, Jack and the baker are also having a heart-to-heart conversation, as Jack expresses how he wants to get revenge on the steward who accidentally killed his mother. The baker shares how revenge isn't always right, especially when that person did that wrong because they were scared or hurt, and with no pure evil intent. The thing is, the giant was also doing what she was doing because she had lost her husband due to Jack. And earlier in the movie, Jack had shared how the giant had been kind to him, even if her husband had not. All this seemed to lead up to the children deciding to try to talk to the giant before killing her, and I was excited for it, because I thought that was a nice message and fit with the idea expressed by the movie that witches can be right and giants can be nice. Then that didn't happen. Before I could process what happened, the giant was killed, and no one felt any regrets about it. They were perfectly cool with what they did, and then the movie just ends with a nice happy family story time, and I was left extremely confused. Number 3 has to do with the purpose of Rapunzel and Her Prince. Now, the storyline of Rapunzel and Her Prince confused me for 2 reasons and disappointed me in 1. It confused me first off because it felt unfinished. We don't know what happens to them, and we're not given enough information to even make a guess. We never know if Rapunzel ever learns the baker is her brother, or if her prince is going to turn out just like his brother and do a similar thing to Rapunzel as what happened to Cinderella. It next confused me in that this was the only story that had no real twist to it. All the other fairy tales had these dramatic twists, usually involving the loss of a main character to their fairy tale, but this one did not. It went just as the original did, and I still have no clue why. And I feel this is in part where the disappointment comes from, because it was simply the generic Rapunzel fairy tale. I mean, she never even interacts with the other fairy tale characters, except when her hair is cut. At one point, the prince was blinded, and I thought they might be going somewhere with that, with both loving each other despite the lack of sight. But no, he was healed instantly upon the two meeting. I guess the characters were really flat, and had a lot of build-up during the first half of the movie that made them seem extremely important, and that build-up never amounted to anything, and for that reason I'm just confused about their purpose. My guess would be Rapunzel serves as a symbol for the witch of how a child's purpose is to leave their parents one day, but even then, the way that message was served to us made it seem like the movie agreed with what the witch did to Rapunzel in locking her away, which I don't know how to feel about, but I do know I don't feel great about. Number 4 goes to Cinderella and the Shoe in the Tar. During her song, Cinderella is confronted with a decision of whether she goes with the prince or if she goes back to her cruel family. The song ends in a way that I feel reflects one of the main overarching messages of the movie, which is there's always a middle ground. Now, I dislike this message because this middle ground they're trying to create is one between doing good and doing a wrong that makes you happy. It suggests that the best option isn't always to do good, but to instead do what makes you happy and make up for it with some good. This is something I'll dive into a bit more with the last message I want to talk about. Anyways, by putting her shoe in the tar, Cinderella decides not to make any decisions, but instead to let the prince decide for her. The song ended, and I was confused because it strongly suggested that if you don't want to make tough decisions in life, then force others to make them for you, which I don't feel like is a great message to be sharing. Make your own decisions. Don't put pressure on others to do things that you yourself should be doing, because it isn't fair on them, and in the end it's going to do more harm than good. I think what made this worse was that she was rewarded for her actions. She gets her middle ground by not making a choice. She escapes her cruel family and finds a life that, well, isn't with the prince, is one she feels will make her happy, all the while making zero big decisions for herself. And before you leave a comment about it, deciding not to marry a prince who you found out was cheating on you is not a big decision. It was simply good logic. Now this last scene is the one that made me want to do this video, and is the one between the baker's wife and Cinderella's prince. I'm just going to first describe this scene to you so you can understand why I was so confused by the message it was trying to give. So the baker's wife is looking for Jack, and as she is looking for him, she comes across the prince hunting for the source of the earthquake. Seeing the baker's wife, he instantly starts hitting on her and forces himself upon her, clearly without her consent. Then it gets really confusing, when she starts letting him kiss her and actually starts liking it. The moment ends with the prince leaving and the baker's wife standing there trying to decide if what just happened was actually wrong. And then she decides it wasn't, saying, why shouldn't I have both? Why can't I have the husband and child at home and a prince to do whatever with on the side? She gives this weird, kind of scary smile, realizes she's hopelessly lost, and then falls down a hole and dies. Now, I saw none of this coming at all, and I felt a bit sick that this would be a message a movie would be trying to promote. That affairs are okay, that sexual assault is okay, because it's not. Cinderella found out about it, and you can see she was hurt by it. Now imagine the pain the baker would have felt if he discovered it, or what effect that discovery would have on their child. Actually, you don't have to imagine it, because the stuff happens in the real world, and the pain people feel when experiencing this stuff speaks for itself. I'm just so confused that this movie would do this scene in this way. I was almost glad the baker's wife died, because if she didn't, that would just mean another mess for the baker in the future, which, if you think about it, is an even weirder message for the movie to share. Is this movie suggesting that it's better the baker's wife died than to have her desires for the prince destroy her husband and child? I don't know. What I do know is the scene ended, and I needed to walk away from the movie for a bit. I was so shocked and confused by what I had just watched. It just didn't make sense to me, and I feel like this was one of their attempts to do that bigger message. That message about finding in between doing good and doing a wrong that makes you happy. But the truth is, there is no in between. doing wrong is wrong, doing good as good. And instead of doing a wrong and seeking of happiness, I feel like people just need to learn to be happy doing good. So yeah, Into the Woods was one of the weirdest and most confusing things I have ever watched. I would recommend watching it, but maybe not alone. This seems like one of those movies that you get more enjoyment out of watching with friends and family, so you can see other people's reaction. Just know its messages are as weird and confusing as the movie itself, and not all of them are that great, though there are some gems hidden in there. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. I hope you have a beautiful and blessed day, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye!